The worship of gods and idols was not just a matter of devotion. It often involved horrific, unimaginable practices that defied the very notion of morality. Some of these gods demanded rituals so dark and twisted that they sought to manipulate the divine through bloodshed, pain, and suffering. Among the most terrifying and infamous of these gods in the Bible are Malach and Baal, deities whose influence drove the people of ancient Israel to abandon their true God in exchange for rituals drenched in cruelty and corruption. The worship of Malach involved the chilling sacrifice of children, their screams echoing as they were burned alive in the arms of a metal idol. Baal's followers reveled in depravity, engaging in perverse fertility rites that defiled both body and soul. The horrors of these gods didn't stay in the past. They haunt the present in different forms, subtly influencing lives in ways many may not even realize. Beware, for the evil spirits of Malach and Baal may still lurk today, masquerading under different guises. Be cautious when praying or laying hands on those who seem possessed, for you may unknowingly be confronting the very malevolent forces that once led Israel into darkness. Who were Malach and Baal? Malach, often spelled as Moloch in some biblical translations, was a god of the Ammonites, a neighboring nation to Israel. In biblical contexts, Malach was infamous for the horrific sacrifices demanded of his worshippers, particularly child sacrifice. This practice was considered one of the most abominable forms of idolatry by the Israelites and was expressly forbidden by God. Baal, on the other hand, was a major Canaanite deity associated with fertility, storms, and agriculture. His cult was widespread in the ancient Near East, and Baal worship involved various immoral practices, including sexual rites and temple prostitution. The Israelites often fell into worshiping Baal, which led to their spiritual corruption and departure from the commands of the God of Israel. How they corrupted the people of Israel. The worship of Malach and Baal led the people of Israel astray, causing them to abandon their covenant with Yahweh. Both of these false gods promoted practices that were diametrically opposed to the moral laws given by God, as laid out in the Torah. 1. The sacrifice of children to Malach. One of the most abominable practices associated with Malach worship was the sacrifice of children. The Bible explicitly condemns this horrific act, referring to it as passing children through the fire, Leviticus 20 verse 2. This ritual was believed to secure favor from Malach, often in exchange for blessings or protection, especially in times of famine or war. Parents would place their infants into the hands of the statue of Malach, which was often heated, causing the child to be burned alive. Leviticus 20 verse 2 states, "Say to the Israelites, any Israelite or any foreigner residing in Israel who gives any of his children to Molech is to be put to death. The members of the community are to stone them." This practice was seen as one of the most grievous sins and was directly tied to the loss of moral compass in the people. Israel was forbidden to follow such practices, as it was believed that those who participated in the worship of Malach invited God's judgment upon the land. 2. The sexual immorality associated with Baal worship. Baal worship, though different in nature from Malach, was no less destructive to the spiritual integrity of Israel. Baal was often worshipped with acts of sexual immorality, including sacred prostitution and fertility rituals designed to invoke divine blessings upon crops, animals, and human reproduction. This behavior was seen as deeply corrupting, and the Israelites' participation in such practices led them away from the holiness demanded by God. 1 Kings 11 verses 2-6 gives a vivid picture of the influence of Baal in Israel through King Solomon's marriages to foreign women who introduced idolatry into the kingdom. They were from nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, "You must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your hearts after their gods." Nevertheless, Solomon held fast to them in love. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. Solomon's turning to the worship of Baal and other gods shows the profound moral and spiritual decay that followed Israel's engagement with these deities. The pursuit of fertility and sexual pleasure became central to the worship of Baal, which polluted the moral and social fabric of the nation. 3. the destruction and corruption of Israel's spiritual life. Over time, the worship of Baal and Malach contributed to the disintegration of the Israelites' commitment to the one true God. The people of Israel repeatedly turned to idol worship, rejecting the law and moral standards established by God. These acts of spiritual adultery, turning to false gods for power, fertility, or protection, led to God's judgment on Israel in the form of wars, famines, and other disasters. In 2 Kings 23 verse 10, we see an example of how King Josiah sought to purify the land from the corruption caused by these idols. He desecrated Topheth, which was in the valley of Ben Hinnom, so no one could use it to sacrifice their son or daughter in the fire to Molech. Josiah's actions, though a positive step in returning Israel to righteousness, were a reaction to centuries of moral decay fueled by the worship of Baal and Malach. 4. The cycle of idolatry in Israel's history. The cycle of Israel's disobedience to God often involved the worship of foreign gods like Baal and Malach, as recorded in Judges 2 verses 10 to 13. After that whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals. They forsook the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshipped various gods of the peoples around them. They aroused the Lord's anger because they forsook him and served Baal and the Ashtoreths. This passage highlights the constant cycle of Israel's disobedience, where each new generation seemed to forget God's commandments and turn to idols, including Baal and Malach. These idols didn't just corrupt the people's practices, they undermined the very foundation of Israelite identity as the chosen people of Yahweh. Conclusion: the brutality and corruption of Malach and Baal worship. The worship of Malach and Baal brought profound corruption to ancient Israel. It led to the destruction of families through the brutal practice of child sacrifice, and it corrupted the spiritual and moral fabric of society through sexual immorality and idolatry. These gods promoted practices that stood in stark contrast to the holiness and righteousness demanded by the God of Israel. Through these examples from the Bible, we see the devastating impact of turning away from the true God and following after false idols. The Israelites' history with Malach and Baal serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us of the importance of staying true to God's moral law and avoiding the corruption that comes from embracing idols and false worship. Thank you for watching.